Karl Schwarzenbrunner, is going to join us. Karl, are you with me?
Can you hear me? I can hear you.
I can hear you now, yeah. So no,
Perfect.
I don't know if you heard your introduction. I introduced you not as a hockey player, but as a power lifter. Is that a fair, or at least a former power lifter? Is that a fair introduction?
It's a fair introduction, and it's the right one, actually. Yes, I'm not a
Oh,
former hockey player, and
excellent.
that's my sport of choice is powerlifting. Correct.
Okay. Now, I've read about you online. I've got some information from Patrick. I understand that you've taken a left turn from powerlifting over to hockey, and I'm really interested in talking to you. We have a good amount of time, 45 minutes, to talk about what you're doing. And when I translate what you're doing, you're coaching the coaches. And if that's the correct way to do it, you and I are going to have a great conversation. Your title is Director of Education and Science for the
Head of
German
science and
Federation.
education.
Is
Yes.
that correct?
Head of science and education. Correct. Yes, that's what I do. So I have
Tell me about it.
basically, yeah. So my thing is twofold. So first of all, I'm responsible for all of the education in German ice hockey and the transfer of scientific discoveries into everyday practice. So I was listening a lot now to the what we heard about data and stuff. I want to make one small correction, if I might, or if I may, Mike. It's actually you always talking about big data. It's actually not big data. Big data is a few informations about a lot of people. That's what Google and Facebook does. What we in sport do is actually small data. We have a lot of information about a very small population. That's what, and it's often a statistical problem. Actually, we have sport it's very small, like let's say all the ice hockey players in Germany. It's not a vast amount of people, but we have a vast amount of numbers, internal, external data, and also on. And that's what we call in sports science in Germany, it's small data, and big data is for us a lot of people and not so much data about them.
Thank you for the
Just want to make
clarification. I'll be calling it small data from here on out.
that sounded like a know-it-all, but I just always think it is a big. It explains a lot of things, in the long run. We have a lot of data, but a very small population, and that's how we have to deal with it. And we're doing a lot of what we just heard before, a lot of data analysis with optical tracking systems and chip-based tracking systems in Germany. And I think the future will be a combination of both, and you will see great things and stuff of this machine learning, what's going to happen in the future. So, and so to get the circle from the coaches, I think those machine learning, I don't want to call it artificial intelligence per se, because that's a garbage terminology again. It's always things within that. And what we talk about is basically machine learning. And it will give coaches more time to do what they should do, and is interact with the players. And you shouldn't always, it should create events for you. You don't should always tag everything and some guy sitting on top, maybe often the goalie coach, and tags the whole game. He should actually have time to watch the game and interact with the goalie and so on. And later on, when coaches analyze the game, everything should be already done per se, and they can do what they meant to do, interact with players and help them to become better hockey players. So I just wanted to round what I think about this artificial intelligence or machine learning and so on, and small data.
Let's back up now. I'm learning how to interview in different ways, but let's back up and say, how in the heck does a power lifter get into hockey? Something's had to happen that brought you over to this world. Tell me how you got into hockey.
Oh, that's quite a long or short story. I'm a sports scientist, and so first of all, I got into soccer, because soccer is where the money is in the end, And so I was in Germany in soccer, Austria in soccer, and then I got headhunted by the German Ice Hockey Federation, and here I am.
And they offered you a position. Hey, Karl, come work with us, work with our coaches. Did they give you exactly the position? Was it specified, or did you go in and say, hey, I'll come, but I want to do this, and I want to do this, and I want to do this? Were they so far in advance that they knew what they wanted, or do they contact you as a person and then let you form your situation?
A little bit of both. At the time when it happened, 2015, it was a 2014, but more 2015, 16, there was a big change in the German Ice Hockey Federation, a big change. Franz Reindl became president, then Stefan Scheidenauer became sports director, and they envisioned something called Powerplay 2026, and a vision for German ice hockey. That was the vision, Powerplay 2026, what should happen up to the Olympic Games 26. And this further, the coaching education changed it a little bit, because the guy who did it before me also did a great job, no question about it. He just did it differently. And he didn't have all the resources I got and I have. And also to further the scientific science-based stuff in ice hockey, because it's quite little in Germany, or it was. I think now we're quite on the forefront of it, actually, I have to say. And so they had a vision, and then they said, okay, Karl, we think you're the right person for it. Do it. And we did it.
Now, you have to excuse my lack of knowledge of German coaches, but if I remember correctly, there are a lot of Canadian coaches in Germany. I would like to say there were 5 or 6 teams when you started that had Canadian coaches. How many Canadian coaches are in the German league today?
In the German ice hockey league?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we have. Yeah, I know. We have one German coach, and the rest is Canadian and Finland, one from Scandinavia. That's it. Yes. In the second league, we have a bit more, and in the third league, we have a substantial amount more. And what I think is most important, because now you're talking about DL, which is great and it's important, but the development of a player happens way earlier, way earlier. It happens from when you're 5, 6 years old and stuff. So, and that's a very, very important part of coaching, coaches helping the coaches and to develop players, because we in Germany, we have 24,000 female and male ice hockey players all together, all from the 4-year-old to the DL player. So that's not a lot.
How many players
we can
did you say?
24,353.
I heard you knew the exact number.
Sorry.
I heard that you knew the exact number of the amount of players, and you have it down to 3. I mean, the number. You know exactly the right number of the players.
I look every 3 weeks. Yes. So 24,000. Yeah. That's and so we have to develop. We can't select, and it's no disrespect to other nations. But when I think about Canada, has around 700,000. I think USA had about 600,000, a bit more actually. Sweden has 80, 85, something like this. Nearly 100. Czech Republic over 100, and so on. Even Switzerland has about 40, so double what we have around. So we cannot lose a single female or male player. We cannot. It's just the cold hard truth. So we develop. We do not select, and that's, or for example, often a problem even for coaches who come from Canada, from North America, where they are used to a bit of a selection process, if they like it or not, but it's what happened. It's the same as in soccer in Germany. We have 1.8 million soccer players in Germany, and of course the selection happens. Yeah, because if you, I don't know, the coach says, "Hey, dude, I don't like the way you talk to me," then there's another one I'm waiting. We don't have that luxury, and thankfully so, actually, in my opinion, because we live and breathe the athlete-centered approach, and we really do. It's not lip service what I'm saying here, and it's just I'm talking, and and in the end we are really mean to players, so to speak. I think that's what really changed when this vision was planned for German Ice Hockey Federation 2026. And I'm not saying before it didn't happen, but now it was written down. That's what we do. That's what we should do, what we have to become a better hockey nation.
So when I hear
Does it
saying
make
this,
sense, Mike, so far, what I'm
oh
saying?
yeah, it
Kind of.
makes sense. It makes sense. And where are you spending most of your time then with the coaches? Are you at the 16-year-old level, or at the 14-year-old level? Are you at the 18? As you say, I totally agree with you. Your development is from the ages of about 7 to 9, and then up to about 14, and then you have a new change when you get to the 15, 16-year-olds. But where are you working and spending most of your time?
So my time is actually most dedicated to trainer education. We have one headquarter in Füssen. That's the name of the town and where our rink is, and where we have most of our national teams where they train, when we come together. And that's where we do our trainer education and refresher clinics and so on, because every coach in Germany has to do, when they have A or B license, at the two highest licenses, they have to refresh it every 2 years. If you have the third highest license, the C license, you have to refresh it every 4 years. So I see every coach in Germany, everyone, at some stage they all come to me. I will see them all the time. And then we have they called Vereinsbetreuer, the club supporters or coach the coach guys. They actually go out to the clubs it's called a 5-star program, and they help them regularly. They visit every club at least 5 times a year. And then our national team coaches, youth national team coaches and so on, they go to the clubs, additionally to the clubs where we have national team players, female or male, and they also help the coaches there to develop the players, female or male.
You talk about your sports science. Now, when you talk about, for me, helping a hockey player to a certain level, there's a whole lot going on about skating, about the bending of your knees, about using your body in the right balance, and everything what that means. That has nothing to do with science as to analytics that we're talking about. But you're going to tell me how you teach these coaches at a younger level through science. So how do you do that?
First of all, a great example is we don't say bend your knees because it doesn't make sense. It's bend your ankles, because that's a joint. It's just plain biomechanics. That's what we found out when we did a lot of measurements and so on. The ankle is the closest joint to my skates and to the ice. If I have little movements in my ankle, I have a lot of outcome. If I bend my knees, until the impulse actually goes to the skates, takes forever. And if you think about it, if people always say you go low and you say bend your knees, you could actually sit your butt down like on a toilet, and your center of gravity is not where it should be. So it's simple biomechanics. It's science. Bend your ankles, for example. Very easy. In my opinion, very easy example, but very powerful concept. It's called bend your ankles, not bend your knees. Show the kids where the ankles are and how you have to do that, but give good, nice pictures how to coach them. We have one club in Germany who developed something now. They don't, the 4 rows, like in ice hockey, with the puck, without the puck, and offense, defense, and so on. And they call it, for example, you are the sun when you have the puck, and you are the thunder when you actually want the puck, because your stick is or the lightning, and you try to get your stick forward and like lightning and so on. And it sounds benign and stuff, but we did scientific evaluations when we asked kids and stuff, and they understood the roles way better than when you just say, hey, that's we talk about the 4 roles in ice hockey and so on. Does that make sense, kind of? What on a very basic level, what science does actually? And sorry?
Certainly the way to communicate as you are, and being able to explain it is certainly something that's important for the young players. Where do you get into the use of analytics? At what level of coaches, and at what levels are you talking analytics to help the coaches, as you said earlier, make good choices so they're spending more time doing the right things as opposed to the wrong things? What level?
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I will talk about years or age group. I think when it starts, when you're under 17, we have, our age groups are under 7, under 9s, under 11s, under 13s, under 15s, under 17s, under 20s. That's our age groups in youth hockey. And when we talk about under 17s and so on, I think analytics can help a lot already. When we talk about tactics, because also maybe a difference to Germany, to Canada, where we built our own identity, so to speak. We don't talk about tactics until they're 17 or 16 years old. Before we talk about tactical principles, we don't want to. Who cares if an 11-year-old knows 3 breakouts? And nobody gives a shit. In our opinion, yeah. We don't want to. It's there. We talk about tactical principles. That's what we do. And about actual tactics, we talk later on when they're a bit older. And analytics then help, for example, internal, external data, where we have. We use first beat, for example, so you get our assessment of our cardiovascular system, heart rate variability, and so on, and live data on the ice in training about our cardiovascular system, and Kinexon as a form of measure external data, so how fast we run, how much we run, how many accelerations, decelerations we have. And then on this kind of level, we try to influence foremost the training session. That's a really, really important concept. I want to go back as well, because before, what we heard and what you talked about is always the game. And the game is really important. That's the measurement of all, that's the gold standard, the measurement. But if you think about it, maybe in a week you have 2 games, but you're about 8 training sessions. So should you really only just think about data from the game? No, you should talk a lot about the data from training sessions. In my opinion, a little bit more important even, because at the training of the game just tells you, okay, where you at. But to get to a certain level, you need data from training sessions. And that's really important. And then when you have this kind of data, then you can actually make smart decisions on the ice. Should the player actually play the last or train in the last small-sided game, or is he exhausted and if he should get off the ice? Or we set a goal that this training session should be cardiovascular system, or should be very hard on the cardiovascular system. But obviously, when you look at the data, no, it's not really hard. So he should stay on the ice longer, or should go with the strength and conditioning coach after that and should do something, and so on. That's what data is and what data does, and how it should individualize the approach of training and regeneration of a player. That's where we talk a lot about. And then the next thing is, and then I stop talking, Mike, is subjective data. We always talk about objective data here, yeah? So we have some device and it measures something. But sometimes, or not sometimes, I think really, really important is to ask the player. And if you ask good questions, you will get good answers. It's not enough to say, hey, how are you feeling? That's not enough. But that's a good study, what we worked with the University of Bochum about regeneration scales and so on. It's an 8-item questionnaire, and it takes about 3 minutes. And so you get subjective data. And with this, mixed with objective data, you get a well-rounded look into an athlete, and then you can help him to develop. So that's important, and that's when we start. And early on, when they don't have the financial means, a club, to have Kinexon, First Speed, or whatever tracking system, we always encourage them to work with subjective data, because it's clear in all the literatures, in all the studies we've done, subjective data can help you so much to actually individualize the approach within a team setting. And for me, that's a bit the holy grail. Individualize within a team sport.
Now I'm going to get into coaches in youth programs in Germany. I would assume are mothers and fathers that give their time for the clubs or for their children. At what level in Germany are most coaches paid by a club? Is that at 15? Is that at 16? Is that at 17? Lower?
Oh, way lower. Yes. We have, of course, there will always the guys who, like you explained, mommies or daddies, and they help out and stuff. But usually each club has around 3 coaches who are full-time with the club. And they oversee everything. And they often always on the ice all the time. And the guys you just basically explain, they help out. That's what they do. And that's okay. and that's all good. But at a certain age, or not all the time, we need one highly qualified coach on the ice. That was also the vision of this Power Play 2026, you know.
And you coach those coaches so that they then can
Correct.
help the players and the mothers and fathers that help out with the team. So it's a little bit different setup that each team doesn't have their own head paid or full-time paid coach. You've got 3, maybe 4 that work through the entire organization, and then parents that work with them.
Yeah, about when you talk about what we just said about 2 or 3 for the whole youth organization, you know, the top organization DL is a totally different
Sure.
it's a different kind of franchise, you know. They're kind of together but kind of apart, you know what I mean. So the youth development program, that's one program, and then the professionals is a different kind of program. And we also have what is called learn to play education. That's a 4-day education for the guys you just explained. You know, it's quite cheap and stuff, but they are just here for 4 days, and that's for mothers or fathers who want to help and be on the ice, and then at least to have an understanding what they should do, and an understanding of what the idea of German ice hockey is, you know, and that's really important. So we have a clear standard in German ice hockey. Again, I always come back to this vision from Franz Reindl and Stefan Scheidnagel and so on at the time for 2026. And so, yeah, so basically everyone, even the helpers, at some stage come and see me, us, you know.
Now, does that mean that all these players, boys or girls, men or women, or junior players, when they get off the ice, they have a piece of paper sitting down where they've gotten dressed, and they fill in their 8 subjectives. I ate a good meal. I felt good at practice. I did this. Does that something that is done on a systematic level throughout all of German hockey?
We try to encourage. Of course, it's always some clubs do it more, some others do it less, but more or less what you said, yes, that's the idea, that we always have a communication subjective data from the players. And it's very important. Again, if what this also does is the coach can communicate with his athletes. Because what we always say, if you speak 2 relevant sentences with all of your players within 1 week, then you've done a great job. And that sounds very easy, but gosh darn, it's hard. And not just, hey, how are you when I'm turning around and I'm off? No, to actually talk to them, look them in the eyes, and be interested in what they have to say. And that's what our goal is. That's a big coaching philosophy what we have in Germany, you know. 2 sentences, meaningful sentences within 1 training week with all of your athletes. And I know, Mike, I mean, you've been in the business. It's hard, man. It's hard. A lot of people, yeah, it's no problem. I do this every time, and I say, okay, then write really down, have you done it? And then that's often homework I give them when they have their clinics and stuff. And boy, it's hard. Boo, it's hard.
Totally understand, and I totally agree. I coached youth hockey for many, many years and understand connecting with each player is difficult, and it puts a lot of pressure on people that have also gone to work and come to practice late in the afternoon after they've had a long days of work. But let's get back to analytics. At what point do you actually start putting into analytics when you're talking to the coaches? At what level do you think that it's reasonable that you start looking at it in a more of a statistical manner that we're talking about in this conference with pro teams and things like that? I understand with the younger players, it's a systematic system to try to get them to understand and communication. But are we talking 14 years old, 17 years old, 22? You said they didn't have certain team tactics in Germany until they're 17. So is it then somewhere after that, or tell me a little about it?
Sorry, 15, under 17s. That's what we talk about, you know. Then when we really talk about this analytic stuff and things, yeah, and so on.
So now your job as to helping then the coaches at the junior levels, do you try to get in and use more analytics with them and data that you can have access to help them do their jobs as coaches?
Mm-hmm. First of all, I have to explain that, again, what I think it's really important that the German Ice Hockey Federation is on the forefront of of technology and science. That's why if you would come to Füssen, it's a very old stadium, but man, it's a laboratory. You know, we have all kinds of tracking devices. We have virtual realities, yeah, immersion techniques. I guess we talk about this a bit later because I think that's next hot shit. That will change a lot for ice hockey. And when we look in our preliminary data so far, our studies, I think it's great. It will change a lot. So what we do with our national teams when they are in Füssen, when we train, is we collect a lot of data, and then this kind of stuff we collecting, we try to help and give the coaches on the club level to understand the players a little bit more and their training sessions. How intense is this small-sided game or this small-sided game? How fast do they usually run? Or not how fast? How is the high metabolic load distance, for example, within a game? And should you match that in training? And if you don't have the technology, what does that mean on a level of talking to the players with the subjective data? How can you match this kind of stuff? Yeah, that's a big thing. Or even technology, it's a video analysis. Yeah, so we work with Startfish, and yeah, how to do it right. It's also a lot of science and analytics involved. Is actually how to bring those analytics then to the player. For example, we propose that no video session is longer than 7 minutes. It's if you look at the science and stuff, after 7 minutes, they're gone. You know, so they're somewhere else. And often, and excuse my language, it's just I don't say it, I rephrase. I don't want to use those words. It's often just for a coach, he does a 40-minute video session, and yeah, I told them everything, and man, and look, and they don't do it. And what he did actually is it was counterproductive. It wasn't good. It didn't help them at all. He should have. That's the job of a good coach. What's the main problem? Identify the main problem, show it, and then that's it. You know, no longer than 7 minutes. 3 clips, a bit of explanation, bam, gone. Or even better yet, that they talk about the problems. Actually, video analysis is done by players. It sounds a bit spooky and stuff, but man, we've done it in national team setting, and it works like a charm. Where you sit them down in small groups, you explain them the offensive zone, the defense zone structure, the neutral zone structure, and then one of them actually from this group has to explain it to the whole team. And then the coach is just a host, you know, he just interacts with them or just interrupts them and say, oh, maybe you forgot this and this. And they do it themselves. And unfortunately, a lot of coaches always think they lose some kind of power. But man, no, that's all bullcrap. They even become even more powerful because they see what it means, that what they tell them actually makes sense. They know it. And we have seen it so often that when a coach and they tell me, yeah, look, I've told them everything I know about the offensive zone structure and stuff, and you will see when they come to the national team, they will be great. They know everything, and they did not even know what a bumper is or something, you know, because they had no idea. Yeah, they have no idea. Or where's the stretch guy? Because the coach always talked at them, but he never bothered to see did they actually understand it, and that's a totally different level. Knowing something, understanding something, oh man, different kind of story.
Most definitely.
Do you see, it sounds always so benign, but I think that's what science does, or what I try to do. Really important brain science, you know, that's what I do when we do studies, and then we break it down and see, okay, just a few guidelines. Don't do it longer than 7 minutes. The room should be not dark. They should talk, actually, when you have one-on-one meetings. It's an 80-20 rule. They should move 80% and you should only move 20%, so to speak. So if you want them to change, they should talk, not talk at them. They should talk at you, you know, and you ask questions. You're just a helper. You guide them, not a helper. Yeah, you are the one who guides them, and they talk and they understand what needs to be done. And that's science, you know, what we do.
Totally understand, and there's so many different studies talking about communication back and forth, and always answering with a question and opening up and trying to create a relationship, and relationships then create a better bond. A better bond means that you want to work harder together. So I buy into that entirely. The 7 minutes I had never heard. I would have said probably 10 minutes, but I would even have thought maybe even shorter, depending on the level or the age as well. When you're at the younger kids, you've maybe got 30 seconds to talk to them
Yeah,
before they go.
if you look at studies from a teaching perspective, Hattie and so on, about 11-year-old has about 1 minute 40. Yeah, and then you need to distract him with something else. That's why we have something, the Spielen, Trainieren, Spielen. That's what we call it, STS system. So we have a game, then we train, and then we game, or we play again. Play, train, play. Always this kind of stuff. You know, it's very, very short bursts of information about technical stuff. Like, let's say if you're skating, you play something with this kind of technique in mind. Then you actually do the training, maybe 3-4 minutes, and then you play again, also with in mind what you wanted to teach. And it keeps going and going and going. And that's how you interact or keep them interested. And it's all classical brain science, you know, dopamine studies, serotonin levels go down, up, dopamine goes up, goes in long-term memory and stuff. It's just, we all know this. It's just crazy how often we coaches don't do it.
We don't all know it. It's a lot. There's nothing in the same with the business world as well. How to create relationships and create people working together. And you often hear teams talking about, oh, we came together. We got in a good position at the end of the season. That's a lot of long, hard work that you either do it or you don't do it. And if you don't do it, you're not going to get your team in the right position to win a championship or whatever it may be. Same thing is for 15, 16, and 17-year-olds. All ages trying to learn something, learning, and there's a lot of studies doing that. Do you have a role model?
No.
You read out any kind of studies? You read different studies from around the world? Any place that you find like, this is my home, I really like what comes out of this place, or you feel comfortable about reading everybody?
I have peers I really like to work with and stuff, because it's also, when you do studies together, it's a lot of, it sounds a bit silly, but it's a lot of trust, you know. And when it has, I think that's often, by the way, often why scientific projects do not work in the sports setting, because they do not communicate enough with each other, and they always think it's kind of a bother, you know. So, and I always think the scientists who come and work with us is an extension of our coaching stuff. That's what it is, you know. That's how we see them when they're here with us, and we do testings and so on, or prepare for national or championships or something. They are here. They're extension of our coaching stuff. That's what they do, and they help us and they make us better coaches, national team coaches, and so on. And if it sounds also minor, but if that's your mindset, oh my God, the whole thing changes, because all of a sudden the coaches don't see them out there, and they bother me, or man, I don't have so much time to I don't know, to recover the players, because now they have half an hour, they have to fill in a questionnaire or something. No, it's all for the greater good, and they all work together. And I think that changes a lot. And so that's what I do. We have researchers we like to work better with and stuff, but to really say a role model, I would not say so.
Do you initiate your own studies?
Yes, yeah.
Which have been your most interesting conclusions in the different studies that you've had the last, let's say, 6 to 12 months, or a year, or 2 years, I mean?
How important, for example, what we did was, again, with the questionnaire about subjective data, how important sports sites can be when it comes to sleep patterns. It also sounds, could be right. But what we did is we looked at all the female and male players under 20 and under 18 when preparing for world championships. And we noticed, okay, man, there's a big pattern always when they get cut. You know, there's always a time when a few players go home, and then a few more players until the final roster is announced, and training games until that time. how anxious they got and how many couldn't really sleep well and therefore they couldn't recover as well, and how much this kind of sports science helped. Just our sports scientists, when they talk to them and help them get rid of this anxiety, how much better they recovered, how much better they slept, and how much better then in the long run they were prepared for professional ice hockey. That was mind-blowing a little bit, I have to say, how much that helped. Then what I said before about this virtual reality, these immersion techniques where you put on your VR glasses and then you're in Madison Square Garden and play ice hockey. And we don't have so much ice time in Germany. We don't have that many rinks and stuff. So ice time is precious. So we have to find other ways to further their cognitive abilities. And this is one part of it, to do so. They can train. You will not get better puck handling because, you don't feel the puck on the front of the shovel and stuff, so on the stick. So it just has a kind of a vibration module in it. So when the puck comes, you feel a slight vibration. But to see my hockey sense, to understand, to react faster to situations, what is a tip in, where's the puck now? Should I do my involve good habits and so on? It's great. And what we did, for example, to test it, we first had a testing stations on the ice, and there, for example, they had to run 30 meters straight, and then they had some stuff in their ears, and they had to remember 8 numbers from the start to the end. Whilst they were running, they actually got 8 numbers, and man, they got significantly slower, a lot of them. Or, for example, they ran 30 meters, and then there were different lights on the side, and they had to tell us the colors. Or they did transition skates and so on, and there was a big screen in front of them, also numbers plopped up, and they had to tell us the numbers. Man, without the numbers, and though often they were 30-40% slower, that's a staggering number, staggering. And then you train with them for 6 weeks, and you do the same thing again, and bam, they're way faster. So in a sense, we make the game slower for them. That's what it is. So they have the puck, and then, it's okay. I have time. They actually don't have more time, but for them, they process everything faster, so they have more time. It's like Over the Hedge. I think it's a movie when the squirrel takes a Red Bull and whatever, an energy drink, and then because he's so hyperactive, the world slows down for them. So he has a lot of time.
I want to get back to where I started, or one of the questions early, and I understand that the professional teams are in their own rights, and they kind of do their own thing in their own league. I understand that. What you're talking about is great work, phenomenal improvements, and you obviously see it when you look at the NHL and the players and how your team has done. The national team have done the different Olympics, World Championships. Draisaitl, for an example, who is one of the best players in the world. So Germany is on the move. But having Canadian coaches, do they buy into this and back you up and say Karl's doing great work, or do a lot of these guys, and it's maybe difficult for you to say it out because you don't want to create a big storm at home, or the guys saying, hey, that's not for us. We coach our team. We're not a part of this. And I understand that they're way up above, but they're still role models for a lot of people because a lot of people watch the teams in the DEL.
So first of all, I don't have a problem because we talk about this all the time. So again, they also have to come to clinics and stuff, and it's 50-50. Some of them think it's awesome, and I don't. It sounds also very, very silly now, but I don't care if they're Canadian, Czech Republic, from Finland, Sweden, or whatever. I don't care. There are good coaches and bad coaches. That's what it is. It sounds that's maybe an oversimplification, but for me, that's what it is, and I don't care. All we care at the German Ice Hockey Federation is that they understand where we are coming from, that we have a philosophy, and we want to enforce the philosophy as best as we can. Because again, we have a different framework. We are in a different situation. Again, 24,353 and opposing 800,000. So Canadian coaches often, they have to understand, again, that we have to develop more and can't select as much. But they do, and they come to our clinics and stuff, and yes, they do buy in. Some of them don't, and then it is what it is, you know. It's the same with everything. Some of them will say, nah, boy, Karl, it's nice what you're saying, man, but my video analysis is 40 minutes. I don't give a shit. Then it is what it is. I have to say, very, very often, the problem solves itself, if you understand what I'm saying. Because 9 times out of 10, they're not very successful coaches over a long period of time. They are one-trick ponies. They do, or not one-trick ponies. Sorry, wrong idiom. They work for one season because sometimes it works. You know, this and you are fucking arsehole and blah and work harder and fuck. It might work but that's often what happened. And that often works for one season, and the next season, unfortunately, doesn't work anymore. And then bam, poof, it's gone. And if you look at the very successful one, Serge Aubin, for example, Berlin, amazing coach. Greg Stor, amazing coach. Don Jackson, amazing coach. You know, so good ones and bad ones. I don't give a shit where they're from, you know.
I totally buy into that, and I agree with you. And I've been in Sweden and seen certain coaches from North America succeed fantastically and be a part of it, and other coaches, which is around the world. So I agree with you. And the new information, it's not actually new information that you've been discussing, sleeping habits and patterns and eating habits patterns and teaching people to play and maximize their body's output. That's nothing new, actually. There's a lot of research historically that we can use. Karl, you are a energy boost for anybody that's watching. You have a heck of a lot of energy, and I assume that you really, really like your job, because that's what it sounds like, that you enjoy what you're doing. Something that's probably extremely positive for the German Federation, and wonderful to hear you. Thank you for being with us, and I will give you the last word if you'd like to tell me something that you haven't said, or something that you would like to reiterate to the people that are watching.
Okay, then if I might use my last words, I want to stress again how important this relation between coaches and players are, how important subjective data is. No tracking system in the whole wide world will tell you if a player, for example, lost his kids or his wife wants a divorce and so on. That's why you have to talk to players all the time, and that's what makes a good coach a good coach. I really believe so. Of course, you should be good in the technical aspect and tactics and stuff, but man, if they don't buy into your system, all is lost, in my humble opinion, and that's why it's so important. Be a good coach, know your players, know them inside and outside, and create an atmosphere where they trust you and where they can trust you with information, or your assistant coaches and so on. And then magical things will happen. Magical things, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Karl.